We are concerned and committed to do everything necessary to ensure a safe, healthy workplace. Now, there are a number of plans being put into place to deal with these issues. This past Wednesday, this week, this report was reviewed with the UAW Shop Committee, the IBEW and IAM Shop Chairman, and management. We believe it is important to share this information with all of our employees, and that's why we have scheduled this meeting today. I would like to introduce to you our representatives from General Motors who are here. You'll be hearing from Dr. Robert Winsek, General Director, Occupational Health and Safety and Health. Dr. Winsek, if you could just stand so they could see who you are. In addition, we have Dr. William Krebs, Director of Toxic Materials Control, is here with us today. I'd like to introduce Bob Peter for our further introduction, President of Local 438.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to introduce a few people over here from the UAW. We got Mr. Robert Parks. He's an epidemiologist for the Health and Safety Department of UAW. Bob. And Dr. Michael Silverstein. He's the Assistant Director of the Health and Safety Department of the UAW. Just a few short points I'd like to cover here. Listen as attentively as you can. Wait until the presentation is over with for your questions. And it's going to be an emotional thing, so let's try to hold on to our emotions here a little bit. We also are having, this Sunday, the 21st, we're having our brothers, Dr. Silverstein and Bob Parks. He's going to be at our union meeting, both them gentlemen. And along with them, Cecil Hampton will be here. Cecil's up here. He's an international rep with the UAW out of the GM department, and Ike Calippi will be there. He's out of Region 10. We all know Ike. And they're all going to be there, and they're going to give us a hand. If you've got any questions that you can't get answered today, come to our union meeting on Sunday at 1 p.m. at Classic Lanes, and they'll be there to help you out, to answer some questions. So with no further ado, let's get this started, and I'll introduce Dr. Michael Silverstein.
Thank you very much. What I'd like to do is just to indicate to you what you're going to be hearing over the next few minutes, and then I'm going to step down quickly. I'm going to turn the podium over to Bob Park from our Health and Safety Department in just a minute, and Bob is going to review with you a summary of the study that's been done. After Bob describes the nature of the study and the findings, I'm going to come back and go through with you the recommendations that we've made in the report that was presented earlier this week. Following that, Dr. Winsek is going to have a few comments to make, and then we're going to open the floor for questions, and we'll try to answer to the best of our ability. Is there, everybody is able to hear? Bob?
The UAW, under the sponsorship of the UAW-GM National Joint Committee on Health and Safety, has completed an investigation of General Motors Delco Electronics Milwaukee employees who died between 1950 and 1986. The major purpose of this study was to further investigate the apparent excess of brain cancer deaths reported by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, in November of 1984. 743 people were identified who died between 1950 and 1986, whose last GM employment was Delco, and this included all those in the NIOSH study. There were 21 brain cancer deaths, including 11 from the NIOSH study. A comprehensive study was made of the 583 deaths, including 16 brain cancer deaths, among employees who had worked in the plant for at least 10 years. Standardized proportional mortality ratios and standardized mortality odds ratios were used to compare the Delco deaths with those in the general population and to evaluate possible associations between cancer deaths and various types of work within the plant. This method adjusts for things like age and the year that somebody died and other factors that might also explain brain cancer. The major findings were the following. There was a statistically significant excess of brain cancer deaths in the study population. 16 were observed for about 3.8 expected based on national rates. That's a four-fold excess. 10 of the brain cancer deaths were among white hourly UAW members compared with 2.3 expected, also a four-fold excess. Similar excesses were present in the other groups, for example, salaried or non-UAW hourly, but were not statistically significant. Clean room exposures were associated with the excess, but do not provide a complete explanation. Several methods were used to evaluate brain cancer mortality with respect to duration of employment in the plant. There was a consistently positive association with the largest excesses found in the higher duration groups. For example, among all hourly white men with less than 20 years employment, there was 2.5 times the expected proportion of brain cancer deaths. But in those with more than 20 years, there was 10 times the expected proportion. Among 105 hourly white women, the 3 brain cancer deaths occurred among those working in clean rooms, with evidence that the risk increased with number of years in clean rooms. All 3 brain cancer cases had worked as gyro assemblers. It was not possible to narrow the risk definitively to a specific chemical exposure in the clean room areas. Among white men with clean room experience, the proportion of brain cancer deaths was similar to that among women in clean rooms, but the evidence for a trend with duration overall was less persuasive because 4 of the 7 brain cancer deaths among white men had no clean room experience. In summary, a statistically significant excess of brain cancer has occurred in this plant, continuing at least through 1986. Several lines of evidence are consistent with a conclusion that the excess has been caused by workplace exposures. There is some limited evidence that brain cancer mortality is associated with clean room work. The clean room exposures cannot explain all the observed brain cancer deaths unless the same exposures are shared by several non-clean room jobs. The recommended response to these findings is the establishment of a comprehensive chemical control program which should be applied to chemical usage throughout the plant and which should include engineering control measures, hazard communication activities, hazardous materials control program, toxicological evaluations, environmental monitoring, emergency response planning, preventive maintenance activities, medical surveillance, and management performance criteria. In addition, the findings suggest that special prompt attention should be given to applying these control measures to clean room operations and to the use of clean room chemicals in other parts of the plant.
I'd like to continue by going through with you a set of recommendations that we feel follow these findings. The results of this study indicate that Delco employees have experienced an increased mortality from brain cancer. Several findings, including the association of risk with duration of employment, are consistent with and suggest a work-related cause for the excess deaths. Clean room exposures are associated with, but do not explain the entire excess. The complex nature of the exposures and the small number of cases in specific job groups makes it unlikely that a more precise identification of cause can be identified with further analysis. An excess of pancreatic cancer among skilled workers in experimental model making and a cluster of ovarian cancer warrant further observation. The appropriate response to these findings is the establishment of a comprehensive chemical control program with specified procedures and safeguards in the following areas. First, engineering controls program, an engineering controls program which includes procedures for design, installation, and maintenance of equipment with the intention of minimizing employee exposure to chemicals. Where such controls are documented to be infeasible or insufficient, a comprehensive personal protective equipment use program must be implemented. Bob, somebody's fainted here. It's okay, we believe somebody has fainted, probably related to the heat, and we'll just wait for a moment. Can I have your attention so we can start again? I recognize that it's very hot and uncomfortable and close in here, and we'll try to continue as quickly as we can without shortcutting or shortchanging you with respect to the information. Okay, I was going through a list of recommendations for a comprehensive chemical control program. The second element is a hazard communication program which informs employees fully about the composition and hazards of chemicals and about measures to be used for their control. This should include labeling, material safety data sheets, and employee training in job-specific chemical safety. Third, a hazardous materials control program with activities including chemical ordering and review procedures, chemical receipt and storage procedures, waste disposal procedures, including air and water discharges, solid waste disposal, and recycling. Fourth, a toxicologic program to review all animal and human scientific data relevant to plant operations with the intention of identifying potential risks of chemicals so they can be appropriately controlled, avoided, or replaced. 5, an environmental monitoring program which identifies and monitors worker exposure for chemicals of concern at regular intervals and informs employees of results. 6th, an emergency response plan including written and regularly practiced procedures for dealing with chemical spills, explosions, fires, and other environmental emergencies. 7, preventive maintenance activities to minimize chemical releases to the workplace and the environment. 8, medical surveillance for employees at potential chemical risk with specific medical examinations designed to detect health effects of chemical exposures. And 9, assignment of specific management responsibilities for all elements of chemical control programs, including well-defined performance criteria for each activity. Now, these measures constitute a total chemical control strategy which should be applied on a systematic and long-term basis to chemical usage throughout the plant. Because the epidemiologic findings, because the study findings are not precise enough or definitive enough to conclude that specific chemicals in specific areas are solely responsible for the brain cancer excess, it is necessary and prudent that recognized and suspected chemical hazards be included in this overall control program. Nevertheless, the study findings do indicate that special attention should be given to clean room operations and to the use of clean room chemicals in other parts of the plant. And in this regard, the following more specific actions are advised. 1, priority should be given to environmental controls in clean rooms to minimize or eliminate exposures by inhalation or skin contact with chemicals including gyrofluids and freons. Control measures should include non-recirculating local exhaust systems, glove box operations, vapor scrubbing, and enclosed systems. Skin contact with chemicals should be avoided. This is especially true of gyrofluids or solvents containing gyrofluids. Because of their special applications in this plant, suspect chemicals include gyrofluids, components of freons, chlorinated hydrocarbon solvents, or emissions from special purpose polymer systems. Many of these chemicals are in wide usage in other facilities, but have not previously been shown to be brain carcinogens. The relatively unique presence of the gyrofluids in this plant and their usage in the clean rooms draw attention to their potential hazards and highlight the need to monitor clean room practices. The available data do not permit determining whether the responsible agent or agents are still in production use or are present in reconditioning or tear-down activities. Now, secondly, a parallel effort is needed to minimize or eliminate exposures by inhalation or skin contact to these clean room and other chemicals in the plant outside the clean rooms. Special attention should be given to reconditioning, maintenance, disposal, and waste management activities related to gyrofluids and freons. Third, industrial hygiene surveys are necessary to plan, direct, and monitor the effectiveness of the above control activities. An industrial hygiene effort is also needed to characterize present exposures in clean room activities. Special effort should be made to document the ingredients, the presence, use, and disposal of gyrofluids. Fourth, industrial hygiene surveys are necessary to characterize chemical exposures to inspectors and experimental model makers. Fifth, continuing surveillance of brain cancer should be instituted, which might include obtaining detailed exposure histories on individual employees. And further observation of pancreatic and ovarian cancers is also warranted. And finally, there should be the development and implementation of a plan to communicate the findings of this study to employees at this plant. This meeting obviously being one of the first steps in that kind of communication effort. Now, I'd just like to underscore the list of recommendations that I just described to you in the following way. I'd like to set it in its proper context. We understand that the findings that we presented are disturbing findings. But there is also a positive aspect to this set of circumstances which should be recognized. And that is that once a problem like this has been documented and has been defined, it is possible to do something about it, to take decisive actions to stop the problem and prevent it in the future. And that's really what we're all about right now. That is why the recommended measures are important and why it's important to turn those recommendations into some visible changes in the plant as quickly as is reasonably possible, so that all of you can be assured that exposures to known and potentially dangerous chemicals are being reduced and controlled. The immediate task in this regard is to take the somewhat general recommendations that I just went through with you and to turn them into a more specific list for action, job by job or work area by work area if necessary, with people identified as responsible for making the necessary changes and with clear timetables and deadlines. We have been assured by plant management that this is going to happen. It's going to take, though, and I think this is easy to understand, it's going to take everybody's participation and everybody's cooperation to make sure that it does. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Robert Winsick from General Motors Corporation.
We're here today to talk about Delco Electronics Milwaukee and cancer. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health concluded, following a study in 1984, that an excess number of Delco Electronic Milwaukee employees died from brain cancer, ovarian cancer, and pancreatic cancer between 1950 and 1986. While the study found no specific cause for the cancers, this excess number of cancers is peculiar to people who work at Delco Electronics Milwaukee. This suggests that there may be a relationship to certain exposures in the workplace. As a result, the UAW-GM National Joint Committee on Health and Safety recommended the establishment of a strict hazard communications program and hazardous materials control program to help control the amount and type of chemicals to which employees in the plant are exposed. In addition, the National Joint Committee supported the establishment of a Medical Awareness and Response Service, or MARS program, overseen by a local joint committee to help GM and the UAW in responding to additional concerns of plant employees. Health professionals from the Medical College of Wisconsin have joined GM and the UAW in the development and implementation of this program. Now I would like to introduce Ted Miller.
Thank you, Bob. I'm the Assistant Director of the General Motors Department of the United Auto Workers Union. And the MARS program has three basic purposes. First is the education program designed to increase everyone's awareness and knowledge about cancer, particularly of the brain, pancreas, and ovary. The session you are attending right now is part of this education program. You will be receiving information about these diseases of cancer, including the causes, symptoms, treatment, and prevention. There will also be an opportunity for you to ask questions. Secondly, the MARS program has established two panels of physicians. The first group of physicians will offer private consultation to employees who have personal concerns about the health problems discussed in this educational seminar. There will be no cost to the employees for this consultation. If this first panel of physicians feels the employee needs further evaluation, it will refer the employee with non-job-related health problems to his or her personal physician. Employees with job-related health problems not associated with cancer of the brain, ovaries, or pancreas will be referred to an occupational medicine specialist or the plant physician. Employees with possible brain, pancreatic, or ovarian cancer will be referred to the second panel of MARS physicians. Third, the MARS program will establish and maintain a uniform data collection system to keep track of employees tested for cancer in these three targeted sites. We urge you to participate in this new and innovative health screening process, especially designed for Delco Electronics Milwaukee employees. It is important that everyone at the plant, whether hourly or salaried, active or retired, participate in this health awareness and screening process. This program has been designed as a service to you and in a way that will provide information that will better answer some of the questions that we have. Thank you.